Thank you and good afternoon. My name is Suresh Shankar. I'm the founder and CEO of Crayon Data, an AI startup based in Singapore. Crayon is my second startup. The first, Red Pill, was pioneered the analytics revolution in Asia. I exited that to IBM in 2009. I'm here to tell you about maya.ai, the AI platform that Crayon has built that powers what we call the new age of relevance. Today's digital natives, billions of them around the world, demand personalized experiences and products in every interaction and category. If you are a digital giant, take Spotify, for example, with 200 million customers, 140 million songs, that's 28 possible quadrillion choices. They somehow manage to find the right 4 to 6 choices for every customer of theirs. So it's easy if you're a digital giant. There are 10,000 plus banks globally, over 10 billion users, nearly half a trillion transactions. That's a lot of data, sending tens of billions of messages every day. Yet they fail to deliver the level of personalization that digital natives demand. Crayon developed a proprietary framework, the relevance quotient, to assess how good banks were at being relevant. We evaluated over 100 banks in 19 countries. And the short answer, not very relevant. This is not just a customer experience problem. Banks risk losing out on over $800 billion worth of personalization-led revenue in just the next 5 years because of their inability in this space. On the supply side, real-world merchants, the restaurant and retailer next to you, the hotel you want to travel to, are also threatened by digital aggregators and giants, losing 25 to 30% of their revenues to these platforms. This is why Crayon built maya.ai. Maya.ai is a two-sided platform that unlocks the value of personalized commerce. It sits underneath the bank's engine and helps the bank drive relevance and personalized offers to its customers and traffic and business to its merchants. The bank benefits from increased customer engagement, higher spend levels of 3 to 5%, and new sources of revenue like affiliate fees that merchants are happy to pay. The platform is live and today has over 27 million users and 2 million merchants. What does the platform do? It makes it easy to deliver personalized storefronts in weeks, not months. Each storefront is personal, not at a segment level. The recommendations are global and across categories. Each of these recommendations at the core has an affinity engine that calculates a score for every customer merchant combination, and it is backed by an unmatched reasoning engine using vast amounts of unstructured data. Maya.ai allows an enterprise to make simple the user journeys of its consumers, its merchants, and its own employees through the power of AI. The technology is patented. The taste graph is a map of the world's tastes with millions of merchants and billions of data points on those merchants. The Choice AI is a cocktail of patented machine learning algorithms, and Maya.ai is privacy sensitive, never having used identity in its algorithms. The platform is cloud native and delivers 3 APIs: profile customers through a Tasteprint API, engage them through a Choice API, and drive transactions through a Bazaar API. These 3 APIs makes it possible for maya.ai to power multiple use cases for banks, wallets, and the travel and hospitality industry of one platform. We've developed fully immersive storefronts for the world's #1 airline, launched a mobile marketplace in a box for a leading Islamic bank, power high-end, high-touch personalized concierge apps for the #1 global lifestyle credit card provider, and is the AI behind Asia's most successful digital wallet launch, having onboarded over 8 million customers and 300,000 merchants and driving $12 billion worth of transactions in just 18 months. So maya.ai is proven, having delivered over $250 million worth of incremental spends and having profiled over 125 million customers and billions of transactions and portfolio value for leading companies, both locally and globally. As a company, Crayon is in the middle of hypergrowth. In 2020, in spite of the pandemic, we managed to grow 65% in terms of ARR, ending the year at over 8 million. And this year, we've already booked in 125% growth and expect to end the year at about $18 million of ARR and will be EBITDA positive as a company. But it is the future that is exciting. We have identified 3 growth levers that will take us to over $100 million in 3 years, expand our core within banks and fintechs in our home markets, expand the Bazaar or the marketplace proposition to drive high margin affiliate income, and expand into new markets in US, Europe, and Greater China and Japan. This happens because of a founding team with deep banking and B2B tech experience. My co-founder Srikanth has had 2 exits to global majors. Vijay used to be the CTO of one of the world's largest IT firms, Wipro, and Arti runs our operations and development center out of India. We are backed by global investors, Jungle and Enterprise Singapore, Mr. Ratan Tata, and the co-founder of Infosys. And we have been globally awarded on multiple platforms, including most recently being the champion in Huawei Spark's first ever global accelerator program in 2020. Over the next 3 years, we hope to build on our exciting traction and become the #1 personalization platform for fintechs globally. Thank you for the time and the opportunity, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Suresh, for your impressive track record. I will now hand the mic over to our VC councils for their questions. So any of our VC council members, do you have any question for Suresh?
Hi, Suresh. Thank you for that presentation. Very interesting. Can you share briefly what's your source of customer data to start building out your recommendation engines?
So there are two fundamental sources. One is that we have built a taste graph using millions of data points, which is crawled, partnered, and bought data from on merchants around the world. So for example, we know every restaurant in the world, every hotel, every merchant, what they sell, attributes of those products, what the reviews are, etc. And that's the external data set. The trigger to the personalization engine is the transaction data of the bank or the airline. So I don't want to know Suresh, but I want to know that XYZ had 100 transactions and which merchants it's at. And that trigger allows us to develop a full test sprint, or what we call what are all the possible. It's like a Google search result saying, I will take the 100 transactions and I will profile the millions of merchants and rank order them in terms of affinity to Suresh. I hope that answers the question. I can go into more detail if needed.
No, thanks for that. I appreciate the presentation. Very impressive, growth so far. What are some major challenges that you're facing right now in coming up in your continued journey and growing? What are some of the big obstacles you see or want to overcome?
So I think the biggest obstacle, I don't know whether you listened to the last presenter from Standard Chartered who was talking about how to sell to large enterprises. We face every one of those problems, long lead cycles, people who don't have, they're not paid to necessarily make a fast decision. There's lots of do it for free, etc. So the sales cycle is the biggest obstacle in terms of time and mindset. And luckily what's happened, I think, is that post-COVID, we're seeing that all these large enterprises are getting faster because they're seeing the threat more, the digital threat more vividly. I would say that indeed is probably the one biggest thing that we can get, which is to get a bank to start trying and using the kind of platform that we have. There are, of course, talent is always a big challenge in a world where B2C companies are raising billions of dollars and giving massive incentives to employees to join. Attracting good talent is a second big challenge. And I would say it's really between these two that these are the two things that keep me awake at night.
Got it. Thanks.
I have a couple of questions. The first one's on the product itself. For the end user, the person that receives the personalization, is it opt-in? Do I have to allow you to look at my transactions, or is it by default through my bank or my financial provider?
It is by default through your bank, because we don't actually have a dealing with you as a customer. We are basically dealing with, let's say it's Hang Seng Bank or HSBC or Standard Chartered Bank or whoever there is, and they have access to your data and they have a right to use your data. Theoretically, they could build an engine like this internally, but it's very, very hard and it's very expensive. So what we're doing is we're actually acting as an engine that they are outsourcing the work to do. So we only work on behalf of that bank to use your data to create those profiles for you. Do you have to opt in? Well, you have to opt in to the bank services. And yes, if you have, depending on the bank's privacy policy, that would determine how you have opted into whether the bank can use that data to serve you the recommendations.
Okay, thank you. And the second one on the product, how are you monetizing this? Is this a rev share through the affiliates, or is the bank paying a certain fee for the service?
Both. We have 3 sources of income. The first one is a subscription for the platform. Typically, if you have a bank that says I have 5 million or 10 million customers and a $100 billion portfolio, we would charge a subscription fee basis the number of customers in the portfolio value. And the ROI on that is justified by the amount of money, the increased spend that we are able to generate. There is a customization fee as well. I think the last speaker alluded to it. With all large enterprises, there's a whole amount of integration that you need to do into their systems, and that would be a one-off, one-time setup fee. The third is the affiliate income, which is a relatively new business model for us, where merchants are prepared to give, let's say, 8 to 10% of their money in return for the traffic. They do this because it's better than paying 25 to 30 cents on, let's say, to a Deliveroo or a food delivery platform. The bank takes the 8 to 10%, they pass on 80 to 90% of that to the customer in the terms of an offer. And if the bank keeps 100 basis points, they share some of that revenue, either 25 or 50 basis points on the GMV with us as affiliate fees.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. I guess you touched upon a question that I was going to ask about your sales cycle already, but I guess taking a step back, right? So how much of your deployments right now are sort of standard deployments versus like custom rollouts? Or is it just all sort of ad hoc, like a lot of customization, hence the sales cycle is longer?
Okay, the correlation between the sales cycle and the customization is just not there at all. I think like the previous speaker said, it doesn't matter whether you go and tell a bank, I want to sell you something for $1 or $1 million, it still takes them a minimum of 9 months. So, and it doesn't really matter there on the sales cycle. As far as the customization and the deployment is concerned, I would characterize it as follows. Every bank that we go to says they want the same destination, which is that I want to create a Netflix or Spotify-like storefront on every channel for every customer. What we see, and therefore our platform can enable that. What we do see is that they start at different points. For example, American Express in the Middle East wanted to start on the concierge app, not on digital, because the Centurion card member calls the concierge. They take different paths. Some will say do offline first. Some will say do only online. Some will say do mobile app. Some will say do, web app for me, etc. So a lot of the customization and the integration that we need to do is at the margin, which is to go into the integration aspects of the various systems and the use case that they've chosen, not on the core platform itself. To put that in monetary terms, typically in an on-prem model, $1 of software leads to $3 of services. In our case, it's the reverse. $3 of subscription will probably be about $1 of services. Sometimes it's a little bit higher in year one.
Thank you so much, Suresh. I believe the Q&A session is now over. Thank you, judges, for the questions.